off, Sting. Shut the up and let's finish the goddamn song.
It's not every day you encounter a rock drummer as enthusiastic as Stewart Copeland, best known for his trailblazing work with the Police. From the moment he first picked up a pair of sticks, he was captivated by the legends who shaped his technique. But what exactly drew him to Mitch Mitchell's spontaneous flair, John Bonham's raw force, Buddy Rich's showmanship, Ringo Starr's subtle genius, and Ginger Baker's daring experimentation? And how did he blend all those inspirations into one of the most distinctive drumming styles in rock history? Today, we're taking a deep dive into Copeland's musical DNA, exploring the influences, untold stories, and revelations that made him the drummer he is. From the moment Stewart Copeland first picked up a pair of drumsticks, there was an infectious spark that set him apart. Many people associate him with the reggae-inflected rhythms of the Police, but his love for music runs so much deeper than that single style. Growing up, Copeland wasn't just listening to one genre. He was devouring everything from jazz to early rock and British invasion hits. Friends describe how he'd spend hours blasting records, zeroing in on the drum parts, trying to decode what made each drummer's style special. Yet, it was Mitch Mitchell who first captured his imagination. Mitch, the whirlwind behind Jimi Hendrix's Experience, was no typical rock drummer. He was a jazz cat at heart, weaving unpredictable fills and rapid-fire exchanges that felt like an ongoing conversation with Hendrix himself. One rumor that's persisted for years is that Mitch wanted to play straight jazz, but was lured into Hendrix's orbit by the allure of something new and uncharted. Whether that's fully true or just a piece of rock folklore, it's certain that Mitch brought a jazz man's spontaneity to rock music, and that left an unshakable impression on Copeland. To Copeland, Mitch Mitchell's drumming was electrifying. Instead of simply pounding out a beat, he seemed to anticipate Hendrix's solos and respond to them in real time. That synergy was special. It taught Copeland that drumming could be more than background timekeeping. It could be a form of musical dialogue. Listeners often point to songs like Fire and Manic Depression as prime examples, where Mitchell's fills practically explode between guitar riffs. If Hendrix was painting in neon colors, Mitchell was the bright, flickering lights accenting every stroke. For a young Copeland, that was practically a revelation. But that initial spark, that zeal, wasn't limited to Mitch Mitchell's swirling fills. Copeland also absorbed the energy from other rock greats of the time, finding his own approach somewhere between the reckless abandon of psychedelia and the precise intricacies of jazz. In interviews, he's described how hearing Mitch was like being struck by lightning. It ignited a curiosity that led him to hunt down the records and performances of anyone who could match that wild energy. And so, from the earliest stage of his musical development, Copeland learned this crucial lesson. Drumming doesn't have to stay in the background. It can be the driving force. Just when you think you understand how Mitch Mitchell shaped Copeland, along comes the booming storm of John Bonham, taking us straight into the next chapter of this story.
Because I don't take instruction. I can't remember what a singer wanted. I try, do my best, but I just start banging shit, and whatever you get, and don't get upset.
For any drummer in the realm of rock, John Bonham stands as a near mythical figure. His name might even overshadow the rest. His style was as massive as the band he powered, Led Zeppelin. Yet, interestingly enough, Stewart Copeland admits he didn't fully appreciate Bonham in his early years. Some longtime Police fans have speculated that Copeland may have been too proud of his own technique, or that he was more drawn to jazz-oriented players. But Copeland himself would later clarify. It wasn't about snobbery. He simply didn't realize the depth of Bonham's genius until he matured as both a musician and a listener. When you drop the needle on a track like When the Levee Breaks, it's obvious why Bonham's drumming is considered legendary. The recorded sound of those booming drums, captured in a cavernous hallway of a country estate, became a cornerstone of rock production. Producers, drummers, and fans alike still chase that colossal reverb and that punchy groove. There are controversies, of course. Some say it was pure studio trickery, while others claim Bonham's distinctive playing was all that truly mattered. But the result was the same. A thunderous, larger-than-life presence. Copeland eventually changed his tune. In later interviews, he marveled at Bonham's control and raw power. He described it as purposeful, each beat monumental. There's an urban legend that he spent days trying to replicate Bonham's foot technique on the bass drum, specifically the swirling triplet pattern heard on songs like Good Times, Bad Times. Rumors spread that Copeland even slowed down some Zeppelin records to half speed, trying to decode exactly how Bonham's footwork was so clean. True or not, these tales illustrate how much respect Copeland ended up having for Bonham. Another angle that intrigues Copeland about Bonham is the emotional tension behind every strike. Bonham managed to lay down a heavy groove without sounding frantic or rushed. He could pull back ever so slightly and still drive the song forward. For drummers, that's the holy grail, creating a deep pocket that feels spacious yet urgent. If Mitch Mitchell taught Copeland about improvisational flair, Bonham demonstrated the sheer impact of unwavering power. Merging those philosophies would later become one of Copeland's trademarks in The Police. Listen closely, and you'll notice he's never content to just ride a groove or stick to one approach. So, how does one integrate the unstoppable force of Bonham's playing without losing the jazz-like freedom of Mitch Mitchell? The answer lies in Copeland's fascination with Buddy Rich, the next monumental figure who shattered Copeland's preconceived notions and catapulted his technique to new heights.
And the one thing I see that you have in common is your favourite drummer is the same person.
Yeah, Mitch Mitchell, we worked this out last night. We sorted out the hierarchy last night.
That's exactly right. And I knew we were really on it because the table next door were beginning to eavesdrop. Yeah. And after 5 minutes, they'd both actually gone to sleep.
That's right. Yeah, so, we lost them.
Yeah.
We lost them by the main
So you both
chorus.
agree that Mitch Mitchell was your favourite drummer
our favourite.
of all time?
When it comes to the grandmasters of jazz drumming, Buddy Rich is the name that towers above the rest. Even non-musicians have likely encountered stories of Rich's blistering speed or stumbled across footage of him performing drum solos that defy logic. Copeland found himself entranced by Rich's virtuosity. He wasn't alone either. Entire generations of drummers have tried to decode the secrets behind Rich's smooth rolls and lightning-fast single strokes. Yet, Buddy Rich had more than just speed. He was, in many ways, an entertainer, a true showman. Whether he was bantering with an audience or hurling out a flurry of unbelievably rapid accents on the snare, he always commanded attention. This fusion of musicality and theatrical flair struck a chord with Copeland. Where Mitch Mitchell poured passion into every unpredictable fill and Bonham brought down the hammer with unstoppable force, Rich elevated drumming into pure spectacle. There are anecdotes about Buddy Rich's infamous temper, stories of him yelling at band members who missed cues or messed up a note. Did Copeland draw from that intense personality, or was he purely inspired by Rich's performance style? Evidence leans toward the latter. While Copeland can be spirited, he's more famously described as good-natured, sometimes pushing boundaries in a playful way. Perhaps he admired Rich's drive without emulating his fiery backstage persona. Still, these stories built Rich's reputation as someone who demanded the highest standard, no matter the cost. For Copeland, the key takeaway from Buddy Rich was technical mastery blended with showmanship. It's no coincidence that Copeland's own drumming style involves plenty of flashy accents and intricate hi-hat work, traits that can keep an audience glued to the drummer instead of focusing solely on the singer or guitarist. Some fans and critics have speculated that Copeland's lasting popularity, even outside the Police, is partly thanks to this magnetic stage presence he learned from Rich's example. The other lesson Buddy Rich taught Copeland is that pure speed and complexity mean little if they're not supporting the overall music. In Rich's solos, each flurry of notes had a purpose, accentuating the band's performance or punctuating a crucial moment. Copeland later wove that philosophy into the Police's biggest hits. He'd inject carefully placed flourishes to highlight Sting's vocals or Andy Summers' guitar lines, turning straightforward pop rock tunes into something more layered and dynamic. Just like Rich's orchestrated big band compositions, Copeland's role wasn't simply to keep time, it was to elevate the entire track. And that leads us into someone whose style is often described as the opposite of Buddy Rich's flash, Ringo Starr. How do we bridge the gap from intense jazz wizardry to the subtle song-serving approach of the Beatles' drummer? Let's find out. Mentioning Ringo Starr in a conversation about drumming geniuses can ignite debates. Some see him as too simple, others revere him as a master of minimalism. Stewart Copeland falls firmly in the latter camp. often praising Ringo for his uncanny ability to create the perfect drum part for a song. He played for the music, not for himself, Copeland once said, pointing out that too many drummers chase technical glory, while forgetting that a track's emotional core might call for fewer notes. In many Beatles tunes, Come Together, Tomorrow Never Knows, In My Life, Ringo's drumming doesn't scream for attention. Instead, he adds subtle textures that complement the melodies and lyrics. Copeland latched onto that idea of serving the song, realizing that drumming can be equally potent when it stays out of the spotlight until the precise moment it needs to shine. There's also a rumor that Copeland, during the Police's early days, consciously scaled back some of his more elaborate jazz-inspired fills in an effort to find a groove that served the band as a whole. Some claim that was Sting's influence, encouraging more simplicity. Others believe Copeland himself recognized how essential a stable rhythmic foundation could be. The truth, as usual, is somewhere in the middle. Beyond the musical aspect, there's a lesson in Ringo's attitude. The Beatles were overshadowed by massive personalities, John Lennon's wit and rebellious spirit, Paul McCartney's melodic genius, George Harrison's introspective artistry. Ringo, he seemed to be content playing the everyman, the guy who grounded the rest. In an industry dominated by larger-than-life figures, it's easy to overlook the quiet anchor. Copeland, who later found himself in a band with a famously strong-willed frontman, Sting, might have taken cues from how Ringo navigated the Beatles' dynamic. Ringo rarely stepped into the limelight uninvited, but he held the group together in a way fans often take for granted. Interestingly, some fans argue that Copeland's greatest achievements actually came from blending Ringo's selfless approach with Buddy Rich's showmanship. He could step forward for a flashy drum fill, then instantly pull back and let the vocalist reclaim center stage. The result was synergy, not competition. For Copeland, that's the ultimate sign of a mature drummer, knowing when to explode with energy and when to support the song's emotional heartbeat. So, we've explored Mitch Mitchell's wild creativity, John Bonham's colossal might, Buddy Rich's technical flair, and Ringo Starr's mindful restraint. Now it's time to drop into a world of pure experimentation, courtesy of one of rock's most notorious wild cards, Ginger Baker. If rock music has a poster child for unpredictability, it's Ginger Baker, the brilliant yet notoriously fiery drummer who skyrocketed to fame with Cream. He was known not just for his temper, but for fusing African rhythms, jazz intricacies, and rock power into something brand new. While it might seem that Baker's free-form style was an odd match for the more structured environment of Cream, it ended up influencing future generations, Copeland included, to view drumming as a canvas for exploration rather than mere timekeeping. What exactly did Copeland learn from Baker? First and foremost, a willingness to experiment. Ginger Baker wasn't happy staying within the confines of conventional rock drumming. He'd insert odd time signatures, polyrhythms, and tribal-inspired tom patterns whenever he felt they served the music. It was risky. Sometimes it made the songs borderline chaotic, but when it worked, it was electrifying. Rumors abound of Baker's refusal to compromise on his vision. Some say he clashed with bandmates regularly over it. Accusations surfaced that he was too stubborn or volatile, which eventually led to internal friction in Cream. That didn't stop Baker from forging his path, though.
That is an experience worth living for. I mean, those songs, that's...
Yeah.
Stewart Copeland latched onto that sense of risk-taking. For him, it reinforced the idea that drums could be more than just background noise. They could be a central creative force, shaping the band's identity. Watch Copeland's old live performances with the Police, and you'll spot moments where he breaks from the standard beat, tossing in an unexpected fill or flipping the groove inside out. Subtle gestures that keep the music alive and immediate. Baker also exemplified how drumming can be both melodic and rhythmic. In many Cream recordings, the toms sing out, sometimes carrying a theme of their own. Copeland has often mentioned that he tries to tune his drums in a way that they're part of the melodic conversation, rather than just percussion. That approach echoes directly from Baker's vision of using the kit as an orchestra of different tonalities. Indeed, if Bonham taught Copeland about force, and Rich taught him about technique, Baker taught him the art of fearless creativity. But was it all pure admiration? Copeland, known for his candid commentary, once alluded to Baker's difficult personality, joking that he admired the man's music more than his personal approach to life. Still, that's part of the mystique. Baker was complicated, and that complexity bled into his drumming. For Copeland, it was further proof that greatness sometimes requires stepping outside the lines, even if it means ruffling feathers along the way. Each of these drummers, Mitchell, Bonham, Rich, Starr, and Baker, played a distinct role in shaping Copeland's evolution. But how do all these threads come together in the end? And what does this all mean for the legacy Copeland forged with the Police and beyond? Let's tie it together. Picture this. A young Stewart Copeland, wide-eyed and restless, soaking up the frantic energy of Mitch Mitchell, the earth-shaking authority of John Bonham, the virtuosic spectacle of Buddy Rich, the understated perfection of Ringo Starr, and the unbridled innovation of Ginger Baker. Each influence becomes a different shade of paint on his palette. Over the years, he develops his unique approach, one that can shift from airy, reggae-inspired hi-hat work to bombastic drum fills worthy of rock's biggest stages. The result? A drummer who is just as likely to jam out a complex, jazz-tinged pattern as he is to lock into a no-frills groove. While many see Copeland as an icon for his dynamic work with the Police, he's also branched into operas, soundtracks, and countless collaborations across genres. And in each endeavor, you can sense the ghost of these 5 drumming titans, weaving in and out of Copeland's playing. According to some rumors, Copeland once confided to a fellow musician that he hears Mitchell's voice urging him to go bigger, Bonham's presence reminding him to hold nothing back, Rich's ghost pushing for crisp precision, Ringo's steady hand telling him to serve the song, and Baker's rebellious spirit insisting he break new ground. Whether that's literal or a poetic interpretation doesn't really matter. The point is that his influences are deeply ingrained in his DNA, and it shows in every thunderous snare hit, in every intricately off-kilter fill that leaves fans smiling in surprise.
Ginger came over and we sat and we did a little thing. He was on the drums. I was playing the percussion behind over there. I got 1 minute before he gets up and says, "Oh," like that. 20 minutes later, the paramedics arrive in an ambulance. And they're telling him, "Mr. Baker, we need to take you down to the hospital. This doesn't look good." Yes, off. I'm not going to in hospital. I got a gig tonight, And he chased them all away. That's probably the last recording.
But Copeland isn't content to merely pay homage. He uses these inspirations as building blocks, forging something distinctly his own. One hallmark of Copeland's style is a playful tension. He'll ride the edge between chaos and cohesion, pulling back right before the music threatens to spill over. That tension keeps listeners on their toes, giving the Police's records a sense of urgency that few other rock bands manage to harness. It's also the reason so many drummers name Copeland as a key influence. He took what was best from his idols and molded it into a blueprint for adventurous, inventive drumming. So, why do people keep watching videos and interviews about drummers like Copeland, Bonham, or Baker? The short answer is mystique and authenticity. Each of these drummers has a unique story, sprinkled with controversies, rumors, and near-mythical feats of skill. Mitch Mitchell sparking wild speculation about how jazz might have shaped rock. Bonham fueling debates over whether his monstrous drum sound was a product of raw talent or carefully engineered studio wizardry. Buddy Rich's rumored short temper and unstoppable technique. Ringo Starr's alleged simplicity that some fans call brilliance. Ginger Baker's fiery temper, risk-taking rhythms, and unwavering vision. In Copeland's case, fans can't resist the question, how did one drummer blend so many contrasting elements so seamlessly? It's like trying to figure out a puzzle. Each piece, jazz technique, rock bravado, melodic sensitivity, playful rebellion, fits together in a surprising yet cohesive arrangement. Creating videos that delve into these nuances tends to hold viewers' attention. They get a behind-the-scenes look at real personalities, listen to bits of lore about the artists' personal lives, and uncover how those life experiences translated into iconic music. The moral for content creators is clear. Blend facts, rumors, and speculation with a fast-paced, captivating narrative. Show your audience something they didn't know, like a rare anecdote about a backstage clash or a newly resurfaced interview, quote that might challenge common perceptions. Keep the pacing snappy by moving quickly from one revelation to the next. The way these drumming greats kept their audiences dazzled. That's how you create the kind of high-retention content that turns casual viewers into ardent fans. As we near the conclusion, it's worth asking a deeper question. What do these drummers truly leave behind besides memorable fills and legendary reputations? For Copeland, each influence has acted like a portal into a different corner of the musical universe. Mitch Mitchell showed him how to co-create with a lead instrument, turning drumming into a dialogue rather than a backdrop. John Bonham taught him the unimaginable power of a single striking note delivered with authority. Buddy Rich was the beacon for technical prowess and stage presence, pushing the boundaries of what an audience expects from a drummer. Ringo Starr was the subtle reminder that sometimes the biggest statements come from well-placed silences. And Ginger Baker dared Copeland to never shy away from innovation, even if it risked controversy or friction. In a world that often tries to categorize and confine, these drummers represent an insistence on fearless creativity. Copeland internalized that spirit and became a living testament to what happens when you pour everything, heart, technique, curiosity, into your craft. The synergy of these influences isn't just about hitting drums. It's about forging an emotional connection with listeners. It's about having the courage to push the limits and the humility to know when to hold back. That blend of boldness and restraint separates good drummers from truly great ones. Fans of Copeland will often highlight how he can be both restless and precise, a combination rarely seen. It's a legacy that underscores the importance of ongoing evolution. None of these drummers stayed stagnant. Mitchell evolved from rock's frontiers to jazz explorations. Bonham took the standard rock kit and turned it into a juggernaut. Rich never stopped dazzling audiences, even in his later years. Ringo continued to refine his craft, contributing subtle brilliance whenever the Beatles, and later his own projects, needed it. Baker paved new roads in world music, collaborating with African musicians and exploring the far reaches of rhythmic possibility. Copeland took notes from them all, forging a path that resonates with musicians worldwide. As we wrap up this deep dive, remember that Stewart Copeland is more than just a talented drummer. He's a reflection of the giants who came before him. Each snare hit, each fill, and each rhythmic quirk carries the echoes of Mitch Mitchell's freeform jazziness, John Bonham's thunderous might, Buddy Rich's unmatched technique, Ringo Starr's melodic subtlety, and Ginger Baker's fearless innovation. The truly mind-blowing revelation is how he's woven all these threads into a cohesive style that's become entirely his own. In a sense, Copeland's musical journey symbolizes something universal. The idea that to innovate, you must first learn from the best, then cast the rules aside and trust your instincts. If there's one takeaway for every aspiring drummer, musician, or creative mind, it's that inspiration can spark from anywhere. You can glean new techniques from jazz legends or find purpose in a quiet, selfless approach. You might adopt a bombastic edge from rock titans, then spin it into something fresh. And if you're brave, you'll let experimentation guide you, even at the risk of stepping outside the norm. That's how legends are born, not by copying a single idol, but by gathering the magic from many, transforming it, and presenting it to the world in a form no one's seen before. So next time you're tapping your foot to a Police track, remember that you're hearing more than just Stewart Copeland. You're feeling the collective heartbeat of generations of drumming icons. It's a sonic tapestry of risk, power, finesse, simplicity, and an unbreakable drive to push boundaries. Now, consider this. If one musician can channel so much history and still break new ground, what's stopping you from forging your own path and reshaping the art you love?